The door wouldn't open because something on the outside was holding it shut, and I was hearing slow footsteps on the porch, like whoever did it was taking their time. This happened when I was 29, before I learned that solo trip is just another way of saying no witnesses. I drove out to the Black Ridge Wilderness on a random weekday, parked at a dead-end gravel lot, and started hiking until the road felt like a rumor. Day one was perfect. Cold, clean air, pine sap on my hands, the kind of quiet where you can hear your own blood if you stop moving. I camped beside a narrow creek and fell asleep to water ticking over stones. On day two, the weather turned mean without warning. The sky went the color of bruised metal. Wind hit hard enough to shove me sideways. Then the rain came, fat, icy drops that turned the trail into a moving sheet of mud. Lightning started striking somewhere deeper in the ridgeline, close enough that the thunder felt delayed by only a breath. I kept thinking about my pack frame and the exposed rocks around me. I wasn't scared of getting wet. I was scared of becoming the tallest mistake on the mountain. I needed shelter, fast, but the trail was exposed and the trees looked thin and whip-like, bending like they wanted to snap. I kept scanning for anything solid. Overhang, boulder, even a dense thicket, anything to get out of the open. That's when I saw it through the rain. A small, one-story utility cabin tucked behind hemlocks, dark wood almost swallowed by the forest. It looked abandoned, like it belonged to an old ranger route nobody used anymore. I ran to it, boots sliding, and shoved the door. It creaked open like it resented the effort. Inside was dim and dry and smelled like wet ash and old mice. There was a metal cot frame, a crooked table, a rusted stovepipe, and a stone fireplace packed with debris. I dropped my pack and peeled off my soak jacket. My hands were shaking from cold and adrenaline, and I told myself I'd just wait out the storm. 10 minutes, 20, then back to the trail. But once my breathing slowed, I noticed the details that didn't match abandoned. A newer sleeping bag rolled in the corner, coated in dust but not rotted. 2 plastic water jugs on the table. And along the wall beside the door, scratches, dozens of them, frantic, overlapping, deep. I leaned closer, and the hair on my arms lifted. The scratches weren't random weather damage, they were gouges, like fingernails had fought the wood. And the paint around the doorframe was chipped in crescent shapes, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. I checked the latch. Simple. But outside the doorframe, visible through the crack, was a metal bracket for a padlock, mounted on the outside. Inside there was nothing, no way to lock it from within. My stomach tightened like I'd swallowed a stone. Then I looked at the window. The glass was intact, but each corner of the frame had a screw head biting into it, driven from the outside. On the inside edge of the sill were more gouges, deeper than the ones by the door. Whoever was here didn't want to be here. I should have left right then, I know that, but the storm was hammering the roof so loud it erased the world, and lightning kept flashing like a camera in the trees. I told myself it was old, that it was history, that I was overreacting. That's when I heard the first scrape along the left wall, slow, dragging, like something hard sliding across wet wood. I held my breath and listened, trying to separate storm noise from not storm noise. A heavy thump hit the porch, then another closer to the door. My mouth went dry. I stared at the floorboards like they could give me an answer, and my thoughts started sprinting ahead of me. But that wasn't even the worst part. The pressure came next, someone leaning on the door from the outside. The wood creaked, the latch rattled once. Then the pressure released, gentle, like whoever it was didn't want to break it. They wanted to test it. My hands moved before my brain agreed. I grabbed my pack, stuffed loose gear inside, and told myself I was leaving even if I had to crawl. I stepped to the door, wrapped my fingers around the handle, and pulled. It didn't budge, not stuck, held, like a bar had dropped across it from the outside. I yanked again harder, and the handle clacked uselessly in my hand. My pulse started beating in my throat. I backed away, eyes locked on the window, and that's when the glass exploded inward. Not from wind, from impact. Something small and burning tumbled across the floorboards, hissing like a snake. The cabin went up in seconds, not like dry wood catching, like it had been painted with fuel. Flames raced along the walls in a fast orange sheet, and the heat slammed into my face so hard it felt solid. I didn't think, I just moved. I threw my shoulder into the door until the hinges screamed, and on the third hit, the whole thing tore free. Rain hit me like a slap, and smoke poured out behind me into the storm. I ran blind through wet brush, slipping, crashing into ferns, lungs burning with half-breathed smoke. Behind me, through the trees, the cabin glowed like a furnace, and somewhere in that glow, I saw a steady white light, too steady, floating between trunks. I made it to a clearing I hadn't noticed on the way in, an old fire lookout tower, steel frame rising above the canopy. My legs felt hollow, but I climbed anyway, hands slick on cold metal, rain streaming off every rung. Halfway up, I looked down. That same steady light was there at the base, motionless, like it had been waiting. No wobble, no swing, just a perfect dot in the rain, aimed straight up at me. Then the tower started to sing, metallic clangs, slow and spaced out, like someone tapping support beams with a tool. The sound traveled up the frame into my teeth. I crouched inside the empty cab, back against the wall, watching every black window. A shadow crossed one pane, quick, low, impossible to place. My skin went cold. I held my breath so long my vision prickled. Then the silence stopped, and the silence felt even louder than the storm. At dawn, gray lights seeped into the forest. I forced myself to move, opened the cab door, and started down. 3 landings later, my boot hit air. A whole section of staircase was missing, cleanly removed. Bolts gone, steps gone, nothing below but wet space. I didn't wait to understand. I jumped the gap, landed hard, and kept descending until my hands cramped. When I hit the ground, the light was gone. No footprints, no tools, just dripping steel and a burn smell carried on the wind. I followed the service road until it became gravel and pavement, then a town name I recognized on a sign. The ER nurse asked what happened, and I told her I fell into a fire. That was easier than explaining a cabin that blocks from the outside. I never went back to Black Ridge, but sometimes, late at night, I still wake up tasting smoke and remembering that door handle moving freely in my hand while something patient stood on the other side.